A warm welcome to our Energy Management and Energy Efficiency Seminar. And thank you very much for taking the time to come and be with us today. I would also like to thank the following industry representative organizations that have given us the support in this event. They are as follows: the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Institute of Packaging SA, Southern African Stainless Steel Development Association, Printing SA, President Engineering Industries Association, Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of Southern Africa, the Tool Making Association of South Africa, the Paper Recycling Association of South Africa, and the Minara Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And maybe just a brief introduction about who we are as a company. Able Energy is an energy management company that broadly focuses on electrical energy efficiency and utilities management. The energy efficiency improvement measures we provide are directed towards industrial and commercial facilities, whether you're owning that facility or you're renting that facility, with a principal objective to assist in optimizing your energy usage for purposes of managing the associated costs. At Able Energy, we do not focus just on a singular set of solutions. Say when we come to your building, maybe we just do the utilities billing for your tenants. But we take a wide spectrum view of the entire facility to help you identify the energy saving opportunities, discover issues which may relate to business activities, operational practices, and identify recommended improvements for better energy management and implementation. This process enables us to help create an energy management strategy that addresses your financial obligations and affords you scalability for the future. Our primary objective as a company is simply just to assist you to better manage your energy consumption, as well as reduce your operational utility costs. Hence the seminar that we are hosting today, which its purpose to come and showcase the various energy management solutions that your companies can benefit from. It also seeks to illustrate how to eliminate energy waste, reduce and control your current levels of energy usage and cost, as well as improve your existing operating procedures, as well as your overall business productivity. With that being said, I would like to call now our presenter, Gregory Diana. Thanks.
All right, yes, thanks very much for coming to attend. One of the reasons we're having this seminar is I see some common faces here of people who we've been to see, and others are new faces, is the whole thing of energy and whatever is quite an important aspect in all businesses. But the reality is 3 years ago, the National Business Initiative raised 150 million from the British government to do free audits. Some of them most probably came to your businesses and do that. But South Africa, countrywide, couldn't spend that money. So while people are jumping up and down and moaning at Eskom and electricity prices and all this type of stuff, when a golden opportunity presents itself, people are negative. All right? And there's a great skepticism around energy management, especially when you come to somebody and say, we're doing something for free. It's like, well, what's going on here? Is there a catch? Who gives things away for free? All right? And, you know, many of you are experienced in your own industries. And you know when you see a good opportunity, you can identify that opportunity because you've got the experience in your sector, right? And someone comes along and starts saying, but how's this, why is that, why is this, why is that? They don't have the expertise, but as soon as you say to them, you know what, I can save you R1 million, and I want a portion of that, they suddenly become the biggest energy management experts you've ever found. And questions fire from all types of things, all right? So part of this, and those are the typical things that we've gone to people and identified massive savings opportunities. But I don't know what it is, whether it's the egos, the mentality. They'll rather keep on losing 100,000 Rand a month than share 50% of it, for example. No. And that's the reality. So whether it's an ego issue or I'm too busy or whatever. So part of the seminar here is to try and understand the business model. All right? We work on a shared savings model. In other words, we come and we say, guys, we'll free up, we'll identify energy savings or capital savings for you. All right? Now immediately you do that, you must remember, if there's an operational manager or a financial manager, you start showing them up. And that's not the case. The case is here, guys, we're coming here to help you. Put the egos away, rather look at the whole thing and let's do it. So I'm going to give you some examples here of that, how that model works for you, all right, and how we apply it. There's two ways to do business. You can go out and you can procure something. You can go and say, let me go and buy lights. All right, and that's sort of understandable. You get a contract and you pay them and the job is finished. But Able Energy comes in and says, you know what guys, we'll come in and we'll assess your facility, and if we can find money, we'll do all that from the savings that we identify. Now there's like some suspicion around this. Okay? And I'm not being facetious here, I'm trying to tell you, the National Business Initiative, countrywide, got 150 million from the British government to invest in free audits. In other words, they would come to your facility, they would pay the consultants 30 or 40,000 rand to come and audit your building for nothing and give you recommendations. Over 3 years, they couldn't spend that money. All right? So what it's saying is there's a disconnect. Now, I was involved with that program. And for example, we use the Durban Chamber. The Durban Chamber has about 4,000 members. All right? And they're all crying about money and all this type of stuff. We put out that call to 4,000 members. What do you think we got a response? Out of 4,000 members, what do you think we got a response? This was eThekwini Energy Office. What type of response do you think we got out of 400?
10%.
10%?
Yes.
Okay. We got 3 people responding. Okay? Alright, so we're going to move on now. And the main thing here is to show you basically the business model, how it works. We'll give you an example and then we'll move on from there. Alright, so in your agenda, we're going to look at, the first thing is energy and utility management. That's basically where we start. We come in, we have a look at your utilities, we see how you spend money, we see if we can free up money. If we can't free up money, we walk away. Alright? So you get that service for free. If we do it, we normally enter into a shared savings agreement. Right? And a lot of people say, well, what's this shared savings? Right? And there's a lot of skepticism about it. So there's risk from our side because we might save 1 rand a month, or there's risk from your side because we might save 1 million rand a month. So it becomes the question of, oh, you know, what's a fair deal? Right? So that's part of what I want to emphasize here. We'll talk about the project and financial services model. So in other words, if there's projects and if there's financing, we finance that out of the savings. So we don't come to you and say to you, give us a 10 million and we'll put in something for you. You can go to 1,000 consultants to do that for you. What we do is we come along and say, you know what, I can free up 20k a month. All right? We do a project for 1 bar, the loan finance for that is 12%, the payback is about 12k a month. It's paying itself off of the savings. You've already budgeted that in your operational costs for your utilities for the year, so it just comes out of there. So you don't have to go and ask for capex, you don't have to go and fight for the board. We know many companies have to fight. The engineering department versus the mechanical versus electrical, and they've all got to have returns of 18 months or whatever it is, and the biggest one will win. Okay? So I'll give the example of Richards Bay Minerals. We went up there, you know, they got a little truck which tips the coal. So the coal comes in and it tips it out. So we were going to refurbish that and put energy saving, and I think the project would save them about 500,000 or whatever. And the guy just laughed at us and he said, oh, you know what? You see that ship over there, there's a conveyor belt, and the links on the conveyor belt breaks. And when that happens, we get wharfage penalties. And he says, at the moment, we're sitting at 80 million for the year. So 500,000 is, we're not even going to win. So those are the realities that you face. Even though it's a good bet, it's not a priority. So then, monitoring, targeting, manage, and control of energy. So, you know, this here, very few companies actually do. Some do, but a lot don't. The majority of them don't. They just run their business and, oh, something's wrong somewhere, let's fix it up. That's where all the problems start. So you can only start really saving energy when you monitor, you target, you manage, and you control your energy usage and costs. It's got to be an ongoing thing. The way to do that is through an energy management system with energy dashboards, and then metering, and then we talk about some examples here of thermal storage systems. In commercial buildings, all right, most of the energy is used in Durban in air conditioning and lights. All right? So it's either heating or lights, hotels, all that type of stuff. Typically here, everybody will sort of see the lights on and say that's where you can save energy, but nobody worries about the air conditioning. All right? So in this particular facility, all right, there's a company across the road here who uses its chiller during the day. All right? But they don't use it at night. So the other company says, oh, can I use your chiller at night and I'll make ice? So they make ice at night when the electricity is cheap, and during the day they just run down the ice while these guys use their chiller. So there's those type of opportunities which sit right next to each other. Some people rent, some people own. There's a legal structure to make utility management. All right? There's normally a bill per earth. If you structure your earths, you use more energy, you get lower electricity prices. So the more you use, the cheaper it becomes. All right, so what is energy and utility management? Now, this is a complicated slide, but all right, you most probably can't see everything here, but essentially from our perspective, all right, it starts right from your historical information. This is your bills, all right? So generally someone in finance gets the bills, puts it in a folder, and it sits there, all right? Then here, your real-time energy usage information. You've got this billing information, but very few of you actually tie that up to your actual usage. So you pay a bill at the end of the month, but you don't know how you use the energy during the day, during the weekend, all that type of stuff. All right? So if you don't know how you use your energy, you can't optimize your operations according to the utility tariffs and stuff like that. All right, and once you've got an energy database, once you know how your operations are working, then you say, well, I'm going to benchmark this. So you then say, for my buildings, my designs, production, or whatever it is, you come up with an energy plan. All right, and there's a demand side and a supply side. Supply side is where you buy your energy from. All right, so obviously you want to buy energy from the municipality that best suits how you operate. And on your demand, basically how you run your operations. So you've got sort of operational improvements, which is your housekeeping. So you might go and change. You see the chamber here has put nice T4 lights in. All right, that's through general maintenance. All right, so there's operational. Then there's energy awareness. So you tell people turn lights off or turn them off. If you can't, you automate it. All right. And then there's energy saving retrofits. So this will come along and say, you know what, we can change this machine, or we can change the operation, or we can do this, and we can save you money. And of course, all of this feeds back into your financial savings, which of course makes some money. And then it goes back into here, and then you can display all these savings. Once you've got all these savings, you put it up on a dashboard. So management might want to see how much are we saving, how much carbon we're saving, how much all this we're saving. And so this is typically what an energy management system is. It looks complicated here, but it can be simple. All right? When you put it on a slide and you dissect it and you analyze it, this is what you see. But in real life, it's far simpler. All right, this you most probably can't see, but one of the problems with energy management, as I said right in the beginning, is it's cross-cutting. All right? Some people just think, oh, there's an electricity bill, and there's a water bill. But the electricity usage and the water usage is all related to your operations. Okay? And here, on the supply side, some of these things might sound sort of highfalutin for you, but for example, you've got landlords. So there might be a landlord who owns this property, and there might be several landlords, and they're all fighting with one another, and you come in and say, you know what, I can save you energy, but you've got to get all the landlords to talk to one another and buy in and all this type of stuff. And the person has a property here and a property there and a property, and you say, well, you know what, if we consolidate all those properties into one property and we buy all the energy in bulk, you can make tremendous savings. Oh, yeah, but I don't like him and we don't talk to this and this. Well, guys, you're here making money. The reality is many landlords make so much money out of rent, they're not worried about the utilities. So you'll go and rent a facility and they'll say, go and get your electricity bill from the municipality and you run it. Okay? We go along and say, but guys, there's 20 tenants here. If I buy the energy in bulk, I can make money out of it. And the landlord says, oh, well, I'm not interested. And you say, well, if you're not interested, give it to me and I'll run it and make money. Nah. So what do? It's like, well, there's an opportunity. They don't even want to share. It's just like, I'm not interested. So on the supply side, on the demand side, you do energy audits, project development, energy saving technologies, capital planning, operational changes, performance tracking, asset financing, market knowledge. They're all fancy things, but they're things which you do anyway. All right? And then there's utility bill and management. So invoice processing, bill payment, historical cost tracking, seasonal energy use. There's all these things that you look at the bill. A lot of people have a problem. You know, I've been in this game like many of you have been in your game for many years. I can go and look at an electricity bill and say, I can save you X amount. Well, how can you do that? I'm not going to tell you. That's my intellectual property. And people seem to get upset by that. Okay, the point is that's what you've got experience with. If you've got experience and you can see an opportunity, you're not going to tell other people. That everybody now wants to know how can it be done. And it becomes an ego issue. It's like, well, I didn't see that, or it can't be, or whatever. All right? And I'll give you an example of that. Then there's property management and leaseholding. So for those of you who are thinking of buying your own property, or lease within another property, or buying something and letting it out, buy the electricity in bulk, take ownership of it, you can make money out of it. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want to chase it. They'll chase the tenants up for rent, but they won't chase them up for electricity and water. All right? Even though there's prepayment meters and all that sort of stuff that can be done. They just don't want the hassle. And unfortunately, that's the reality. Okay, some of these things are like gold mines to us, and to other people it's not interested. So here, tariff optimization, tenant sub-billing. We go to tenants in many places, and they just get a little strip of paper. One little thing saying you owe this amount of money. The landlord doesn't even provide them with a bill like you get from the municipality. You know, it tells you what tariff you're on, what the meter number is. That by law, that's required. You can go to Gateway Shopping Centre and the MTN store gets a bill, 20,000 Rand for electricity. Just one line. No explanation. So how are they actually going to check whether they've been done out or not? The fact is they can't. Then when you come in there and start doing some analysis, all right, and find out you can find a saving, it becomes a difficult thing. Oh, how do you know this? How do you know that? Well, you know, I know it because you've been ripped off. And somehow some ego issue creeps in there as well. All right, so there's also, for example, here the energy information, collect data, monitor, data analytics, dashboards, data mining. All this stuff here is particularly where we like to play. All right, is basically all this stuff should be done, and then once you've got all your metering in, all your bills, somebody sits up top there and analyzes it. That's the space we like to play. But unfortunately, all this other stuff, to get there, you need to put put these lights in, justify why it should be, where the savings coming from, and eventually after a year or two, you get to the place where you want to be. Then there's regulatory compliance. Okay? So, for example, when you get a bill from your landlord or the municipality, there's regulatory compliance. It has to be stipulated like this. The bill has to be provided with that. The Durban municipality, Durban Electricity, will not come to any one of you and say, you know what, this is the best tariff to be on. Okay? Because first they want to make money. The second is if I come to you and say this is the best tariff to go on, the second month you experience a loss, you're going to go back to the municipality and say, hey, but you told me this was the best. So there's a question of risk. So the municipality will just stand back and watch you lose money, okay? And, sorry, if you want to change, yes, it's up to you. So basically, for you to do tariff optimization, it's up to you. You have to do it. If you've been on the wrong tariff, losing money for the last 10 years, that's your problem. It's not the municipality's problem. And it's amazing that people actually don't do that. They don't look. They complain about the electricity bill. They will say, "Oh, this is high and that's high and this is what's Eskom's this and Eskom's that." Guys, this is your house. This is your factory. Take responsibility and do it yourself. And the people don't know how to do it. All right? Because they don't know how tariffs are designed. They don't know how the municipalities. If the municipality or government says, you come up with an idea which says, I'll do this and save money. After a year or two, they'll take the price from here and increase it just where you were, because they're not going to lose money. So it's a constant game that you have to play. Is there anybody on time of use here? Okay. So on your time of use tariff, have you followed in the past 8 years between peak, off-peak and standard rates how the municipality is pinched? So I don't know if you've noticed, in the last 2 years the cost of the peak period has come down, but they've put up the standard period because standard's a longer time period. So instead of getting a lot over a little, they're getting a little over a longer period. So they do all these things and they make it seem cheaper, but in actual fact it's not. Okay? And the reality is you guys have got your jobs to do and every business to run. You don't worry about it. So that's where we come in. Alright, so let's look at the project and financial model. Alright, so as I said, many are aware of the cost and impact of energy. Right? We see it in the paper all the time and people talking about it. Many are aware of the need to save energy. Yeah, it's costing us. How are we going to save? Yes, we want to save. I just don't know how to do it. Alright? If so, why is there so much energy wastage and excessive utility bills? So we go to clients all the time and we just see money being thrown down the drain. Okay? And people just don't want to do anything about it. And they find every excuse. Alright, so in some cases it's very difficult to motivate for CapEx, as I said, for people who are in a more structured business and you've got different divisions, you've got to fight against each other. So that's where we come along and say, you know what, if you're fighting for CapEx, but you've got an operational budget, and I can free up 30% of your operational budget, you don't have to go to management and ask for CapEx and motivate. It's coming out of your OPEX. You've already committed. Oh, no. Then you get another 10,000 excuses. All right? So it's like, okay, well, what do you want? Then there's need for very short payback periods. So some projects can pay themselves back very quickly. Some can't. All right? And that's why when you're in a business, you need to look at your life cycle. When you're here, are you here for 5 years? Maybe you're there for 30 years. Some people we've been to, they're renting and their lease is ending up in a year's time or whatever, so it's not worthwhile or whatever it is. So when you go along, you need all this type of information, all right? Because in some cases, 6 years does make sense because you're going to be there for 30 years, all right? So the net result is nothing gets done and energy and financial losses continue. So it's like a circuitous route. You know, yes, we want to save energy. There's a problem. When you're told of the problem, no, it's not worthwhile doing. And the final thing is, does this sound all too familiar? I'm sure you've had this within your own organizations. Right? But I can do this, yeah, but it's not a priority. So what is a priority? Okay? My personal view is if you don't walk into any company which has an energy management policy, you walk away because you're going to hit into all these problems. So if a company isn't committed to doing something, and it's not part of their bottom line, you'll spend time. On the other hand, there's some people you walk to, they listen to you, then 2 weeks' time there's a contract signed, you go in, you make your savings, and it's done and dusted. Alright? And clients are happy and all that type of stuff. So not all negative, but what we experience is there's more negatives than positives. Okay? Let's put it this way, if energy management was fishing and we had to make a living off fishing, we would die. Alright, so what we want to look at is when it comes to utility management and saving money and stuff like that, what do you need to know? It's not just an electricity bill. Somebody in the municipality said, okay, you on business in general, how did I design that tariff and why? Why is your sector or that area being charged like this? Or so on and so on. So you need to understand all these things. Right, so for example, you don't see it in eThekwini, but with Eskom, you know, most of the power is generated up here. Alright, so as you go further away, your energy becomes more expensive because to transport the energy down here, there's losses. So you can see, for example, if you want a business, why do you think many things are located around Pretoria, Witbank, Nelspruit, all that type of stuff? Because the energy is cheaper there. So if you've got 2 factories or 3 factories, one there, and one there, and they do exactly the same thing, all right, there's going to be different costs involved, whether you like it or not. So your product's going to be 3% more expensive if you're 900 kilometers away, as opposed to someone who's within 300 kilometers. All right, so that adds on to your bottom line. 3%, big numbers when you start talking about big numbers. All right, the where, okay? So, for example, there's these things. If you're less than 500 volts, there's a loss factor of 1.11. If you're between 500 volts and 66, 1.09. So, what is this telling you? You're on time of use. What is that telling you as a consumer? eThekwini have this as well, but what is this telling you? Okay, reality is you don't know. So what it's telling you is if you take your voltage below 500 volts, you get the highest loss factor applied. If you go to 566, there's a lower loss factor. What it's basically saying is if you invest in your own infrastructure, your own transformers, all right? If you take it at 132 kV, you will get a much lower loss factor. So what is this doing? Eskom's saying to municipalities, and it's saying to its customers, if you invest in your own infrastructure, we will give you a discount. All right? And that discount will adequately pay for it. Otherwise, we have to look for it. We have to send our technicians out to look after things. All right? And exactly the same here. All right, transmission factors for load. So you've got different factors here, okay, which get embedded. Not one, there's 3 of them. All right, they get embedded into the Eskom tariff. You don't see this in the eThekwini tariff because the eThekwini tariff compiles its tariff differently. Like for example, there's a 3 cent per kilowatt hour national surcharge added on. You don't see that here. All right, but it's inside the Eskom tariff. Then there's the other thing. When? Well, if you are not on time of use, if you're on business in general or something like that, it's a flat tariff. It doesn't matter You know, we go to customers, and customers with a flat tariff are saying, we're doing power factor correction. We've just spent 100,000 doing power factor correction. And I just shake my head. Guys, there's no penalty for power factor correction, so what the hell are you investing the 100,000 for? If I go to them and say, give me 100,000 rand to do this, no, we must do, because some guys come along from some company and say, oh, but there's power, oh, I've heard of power factor, yeah. But the guys are so daft, they don't realize that it isn't applicable to them, but they'll still do it. Okay? So here, for example, very simply, on weekdays, electricity is cheap over here. It's a bit more expensive. This is where everybody uses it, so it's very expensive there. Then you go through your, what is it? Standard peak. So weekdays look like that. Saturdays look like this. So there's no peak. And Sunday is all off peak. All right? And people say, well, let's say you're making air conditioning for this place. All right? What it means is, if you were making ice, you could make ice the whole of Sunday and virtually the whole of Saturday, off-peak cheap. You can store that ice here, so you don't have to make it during the week. And then you run your air conditioning all at off-peak rates. Okay? Simple. But no, you come in here, you turn your air conditioner on, and I've got air conditioning and I'm happy. Because it's a comfort thing, it's a human thing. All right? I need to be cool, therefore I need it. And if I don't need it, I'll go home or whatever it is. All right, I don't know if you understand, but there's also public holidays. All right? So for example, Human Rights Day, which occurs on a Wednesday, which is a weekday. All right? It's actually a Wednesday. What is it? It's treated as if it was treated as a Sunday. So does anybody ever check on these holidays that they actually charge these rates by the municipality? Does the municipal bill say there were several holidays during this week, this month, and for that you got charged this? I mean, what is that? And with their new revenue system, do you really trust it? So, this here is just very simple. That's the consumer price index. Okay, since 2003. This is Eskom. So this is when Eskom went on this big splurge. All right, and the national energy regulators cut them back. Eskom wanted to continue like this. Okay, and continue throwing money down the drain. So they've been reined in now. Okay, and the only good thing about this, of course, is that it's made energy management more focused. Because obviously if the tariffs are so low, nobody does energy management because it's too cheap. Alright, and then there's the how much. So, common cost drivers are rand per customer per month, typically for customer service and admin, rand per kVA. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is what's sitting on the other side. The Eskom guys looking at you as customers and saying, how are we going to squeeze money out of you? Alright? So there's all these things that are happening in the background. There's someone now sitting there in Eskom, sitting in the municipality, deciding, guys, the chamber will tell you we need to stimulate business. All right? The Durban Electricity is saying we need more money. All right? So there's like competing things. So there's people sitting in the background there, plotting away. So what I'm trying to say to you is electricity pricing, water pricing is not a simple thing. There's people looking at it all the time. And it's something which you guys don't do. It's just something you get in the post at the end of the month, you look at the bill, and you pay it. And nobody questions it. Because if you question it, they cut your lights off. So they use these bullying tactics deliberately because they don't want to suffer from cash flow issues. Alright, so as I said, Able Energy's got a project and financing model. Alright? We like to come in, say to you, look, we'll look at your organization, we'll free up money, and then we'll work from there. And we enter into an agreement, and generally people, you know, how much, you know, I might spend 100,000 rands worth of fees and it ends up being an unviable project. So we lose that. If I come along and I say I'm going to make R1 million a month, oh, now that's, well, first of all, we discovered the 1 million. You didn't even know it was there. So you were losing this million a month. Now if I say I want 50% of that, it's a sin. Okay? You want to lose 100% or you want to make 50%? Okay? And the point is what's very difficult in our game is if you tell the client this, then they go and do it themselves. Alright? So people have to respect intellectual property. The proof is in the pudding. If I take the risk, if I change the tariff and that savings made, it's made. You can't take it away. Alright? So we free up capital through operational tariff optimization, infrastructure ownership, property ownership and legal structuring, tenants and subletting, rent and utility agreements. Okay? So people can save money just the way they structure their business, the way it's legally registered. I think some people here, for example, run their businesses in Itala properties. So Itala have got this industrial park and they just say, go and get your electricity from the municipality, but they own the transformers and they own the infrastructure. So for you to do some optimization, you're like stuck. I'm in here, but they've got another 5 people also using that piece of infrastructure, so I can't do anything. So you end up getting shot in the foot. So in the end here, you know it's costing you more, but you don't know what to do, which is generally the case that we've been to people. It's like, yeah, you know, I know there's an electricity bill, and yeah, we've had 20 other people come along and say exactly the same thing, and yeah, I'm not sure whether anything can be saved. Well, let us have a look. It's going to cost you nothing. Okay. If we find something, we both win. That sounds very easy, but I can tell you, it's not easy. So I've given an example here. Sorry, you most probably can't see this. This takes something to an excess. All right. This is a bill from a large client. It's about 5 bar a month. All right. And this is a typical Eskom bill, very similar to Durban Electricity. They give you your energy usage here. So straight away I can see, okay, there's your average energy usage during the year. They shut down in January. Here's their KVA, and you can see in that particular month it went up. And so this is a customer I go to. And this customer's been having this bill for the last 8 to 10 years. So I come in, so sorry, I should make this bigger, but unfortunately that's the way it is. So let's see what's happening. Well, first of all, if you have a look here, the customer's being charged 60,000 kVA. That's their notified maximum demand. Can you see here? This here is sitting at 40,000. There's 50, 60. So the notified maximum demand is sitting up here. Alright? So, in other words, they're just throwing money down the drain. So let's just carry on. So there's that 60,000. Alright? Now let's go here. You'll see here, that 60,000 cost them 7 Rand 11 and 14 Rand 35. There's a transmission capacity charge and a network capacity charge. It's about 245,000 and 400 odd thousand. All right. So just do the numbers. I reduced the notified maximum demand from 60,000 to 40,000. It results in a saving of 20 times that. It's 427,000 Rand a month. What did I do? And this is what seems to get people in industry up the nose. All I did was I walked over to Eskom, signed a piece of paper on behalf of my client, and I want to change it from 60 to 40. Oh, but that's unfair. You're saving 427,000 Rand a month. Now, if I ask for 50% of that, it's a sin. But hold on, you're losing that every month. Anyway, if I hadn't come here, you lose this every month. Multiply that by a year. Okay. So the question is, all right, so we've done that. Is that everything else? Well, let's see. Is the job done? Okay, so we've saved 427,000. Okay, now we go here. You go to these tariffs. you'll see that that customer is sitting between 500 volts and 66 kV. There's a certain tariff that's applicable. There's that charge, 711. If you come down here, you see the same thing. In that voltage range, they're paying 14 Rand 25 and 27 for network charge. If that company went and said, okay, I'm going to buy my own transformer. Let's say they bought a 132 kV transformer. Suddenly, they get different rates, much lower, 7 Rand, 6 Rand. Okay? Here they go from 14 Rand 25 to 5 Rand 10. Here they go from 27 to 4 Rand. Alright, I think it's 4 Rand. So let's take that now. Is that all? So let's have a look. Here's the original bill. Now you didn't see in the original bill, but Eskom were billing them every 15 days. Not every 30 days. Every 15 days. Right? Which is illegal. Because your notified maximum demand is the 30 day. But anyway, they were doing it. So I took that bill and I converted it to a month. Alright, so instead of the 5 million, it's 11 million. Then I optimized it and I said, okay, let's take the new charges, alright, and what happened? Remember there's a high season, a low season and a high season. So during low season is 9 million. The saving was 13.9 million. In high season, the saving was 5 million. So the total saving I made, 1, dropping the maximum demand. 2, buying a new transformer. Oh, but a 60 MVA transformer costs a lot. Sorry? You're going to make 19 million. How much does a transformer cost? It doesn't cost a fraction. It costs a fraction of that. Right? So there's a client who's saying, you know what? I can't find. Electricity is expensive. All right? Here's an example. Okay. Where we came along, we advised, we made 20 million saving. Alright? If we never went there, they would have made that loss anyway. So the point is now, what's a fair amount? So if you go to the stock exchange and you put into Bitcoins, I put 1,000 Rand into Bitcoin, and next day it went from $5,000 to $100,000. What do? You take the money and you run, where I made the profit. But when it comes to here, and I say, well, I now want half of the 20 million. No, there's something wrong with it. I could have done that. I had my eye off the ball or whatever. So you can see, saving 20 million like this in an organization says what? It says, what about the engineers? It says, what about the finance people? It says, what about the CEO? So it becomes an ego issue. All right? And people will rather leave it and make the loss, then sort of say, you know what, I've sort of been shown up. And it's not about showing you up. It's like, guys, you've got other things to do in your lives. We came along and we saved you 20 million. If you just did this. What is the sin about that? But unfortunately, people just won't buy into it. Okay? Why? I have no idea. So that's basically, all right, forms the basis of how we come in. So we come in and we say, you know what, if you do these things, you can save 20 million. Right? Now let's go ahead. The 20 million is coming out of the savings. You don't have to raise the capex, nothing. It's coming out of the savings. You would have had to have budgeted for those electricity costs anyway. Right? So rather than pay to Eskom, you're now giving half to yourselves and half to us. All right? So we work on a shared savings basis with a buyout option. So we take a risk. When we come to a client, we don't know whether we're going to save 1 Rand or 1 million Rand. If it's a reasonable amount, we lose out, or we walk away from the project. If it's a lot of money, we realize, you know what, okay, we saved you 20 million, all right? And the contract's, let's say, 3 or 4 years. Well, then buy us out. Give us 2 years worth of it, cash up front, and you take the rest for yourself. So you come to a compromise. So we give a buyout option. A lot of people, when we put our contract in the, well, what's this buyout option? The buyout option is, well, okay, we don't want you to sit around here making money for the next 5 years. Go away. Okay, we'll go away. Buy us out and we'll go away. We'll do a deal. So if that company says, here's 10 million, there you are, off you go. Okay, you're free of the contract, whatever. Right? But you must remember that buying us out also transfers the responsibility back to you. So it's not like, you know, we were doing something, oh, you've come and solved our problem, and now you've gone away. In other words, it's just a money thing. Well, the problem wasn't a money thing. The problem was a people thing. So if you kick the people out who actually identified the savings in the first place, you're shooting yourself back in the foot. So, and we take the responsibility. If we make a mess up with a tariff, we pay, not you. If you change the tariff and you mess up, you pay. So there's risk with all of this. All right, so once we've done all that, all right, what we tend to like to do is to say to a client, all right, let's put a meter in your main incomer or in your production facilities or in your landlords or your tenants or whatever it is, and we can manage costs. So it goes back to this whole thing again. All right, I've explained that. So here, for example, is a customer, right, which typically you can see they come in during the day, there's air conditioning comes on and it goes. There's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. This is what we call a load profile, right? And when you put metering in, you can start seeing this. See what an average Monday looks like, Tuesday and whatever. So for example, there's a base load here, there's a continuous use of electricity. You can put PVs during the day, which can take care of this. So that's how we start analyzing how you can make further savings and investments and stuff like that. Right? So this peak here is during the day. If you put a PV in there, you could most probably cancel it out. But you don't want to try and cancel all this out. There's a big base load here. All this green here can be saved. All right? So instead of that looking like that, you could bring it down here somewhere, say like down to here. But you can only do this once you've got the metering and monitoring in place. If you don't have it in place, you just see this as a number at the end of the month like that electricity bill. Right, so here for example is an example of a thermal storage system for HVAC. I used to work at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. They used about 120 million a year on utilities. 60% of that was air conditioning. Right? So what we did there is to save money, we put water tanks and ice tanks and we made the electricity at night when the electricity was cheap, okay? And then during the day the chillers didn't run, just the water pumps ran. So you don't need the 200 or 1 megawatt chiller running during the day. You can make the ice at night and you can save it during the day. So this was a typical example of what that system looked like. Here, when we put the system in, all right, you see the thermal storage ran at night. All it did during the day, you can see here, was the water pumps ran. This was a particularly hot day, so the chiller came on, okay? And this was during summer. All right, so you can see here, it was most probably the weather was cooler, and for 4 days, it never made ice. This here is when it's making ice. So it made ice here, and then it ran for 3 days off the ice. Okay? And this is during winter. All right, winter is the most expensive time, but it's also cool. So you don't use much air conditioning. So here you can see it charges up, runs for 2 days, charges up, runs for 2 days, and so on. So there's a tremendous amount of savings. You can do that with hot water as well. I'll show you later. All right, an energy management system. Of course, once you've got all these meters in, you've got to manage your energy system. All right. So here's a typical example. You've got a building management system or building automation system. You might have this, you might not have it. There's all your facilities, your buildings, and we take all this information and we pull it back into one energy or one server, and then we do all our reporting. Okay, so these might be facilities, many facilities inside, an industrial park, or there might be disparate facilities all over the country. It makes no difference. We pull it back, we do this, and then you can get a handle on what's happening at each one of these to whatever level you desire. Remember, this is not to someone here to turn something off over there. Turning things off and on happens here. You don't want that happening somewhere in Johannesburg or whatever it is. If you want it, it can happen, but it's not wise. Alright, so we also talk about this Internet of Things. So you've got an HVAC, you've got lighting, you've got access, you've got occupancy, irrigation. You can link all those things back into a common system. Alright? And we can integrate those disparate systems. We don't need to change them. If you've got system A, B, C, D, we pull it all in together. These are all the modern things that are coming along now. So you've got HVAC control, meter, smoke sensor, light. You might have production facilities here. Okay? You might have production lines. Well, same thing. It's just another widget. A production facility gets represented as a meter. Okay, and that machine might make paper, it might make plastic, it might do this. To us, it's just energy, and that load profile will tell us how it's made. The main thing is that you want to get this information in these devices back up into your system. There's little systems which come along, and they've got, sorry, this is a bit small, but one of the problems you have is that there's ABB, there's Siemens, there's this, there's that, and each one of them have got their own industrial protocol. Right? So you get devices now which can take all those protocols and put it back into English or Zulu, whatever it is that you wanted to talk. Okay? But you sitting here as managers, as technicians, engineers, you don't want to get involved in this nitty-gritty. You just want to make sure that it works, it gets back, and it runs. Alright, so these are all the different types of protocols that are out there in existence. That's a fraction of them. There's much more. Okay? And what you don't want to do is get locked down into a particular supply. You want to be able to say, I can have ABB here, Siemens here, this one, that one there, and they all talk to my system. They got a different business model where they want you to only use them. Alright, here's a typical thing of hot water, which we did for the Edgewood College at the university. These guys here use a tremendous amount of hot water. Alright, so what we did is we used some heat pumps, and we used a plastic tank. Any of you who do heat pumps or things know that the cost of this installation is actually in the pressure vessels. So a 10,000 litre pressure vessel can end up costing you 300,000–400,000 rand. Okay? The cost of all of this and the heat pumps was less than the pressure vessels. That was a 10,000 litre JoJo tank. Cost us 15,000 or 20,000 rand. So basically, this is the time of use. This is how students use water. So water is getting used, and then the students get up, and then they use it during the day, and then off it goes. So this was monitored over many months. And this here, alright, so you'll see here, this is the water consumption. So there's water consumption all day. Not just in the morning and in the afternoon. There's water consumption all day. Alright? That monitors all the residences. That's the energy. Okay, so what we did is after the thermal storage, this is what happened. We made all the water hot in the off-peak, and during the day, that's the pump which was running. So you go down here to 43 cents a kilowatt hour, R2.50, maybe 80 cents, 80 cents here. So the system paid for itself. First of all, using the JoJo tank in a non-pressure system, just the capex paid the project off, and then on top of that you still made the savings. Then on top of this we used low flow shower heads. Alright, so in other words we put low flow shower heads, and we got a 30% reduction in water through the shower heads on top of that. So I'm saving the university at the moment something like about 7 million a year, just by putting in low flow shower heads, and then you put the other stuff on. So this is an example of how the air conditioning works, how the hot water works. Big problem is pressure vessels. Okay, if you use pressure vessels, you can't see these savings. There's an example of the HVAC again. It's exactly the same. So here we we make cold water at night and we run. This is during the summer months when it's hot. Okay. Otherwise, if you wanted to run like it does in winter and summer, you have to have massive amount of tanks. So you end up wasting money anyway. So you've got to sort of say, well, during summer, we let the chiller run a little bit during the day, because when people design an air conditioning unit, they design it for the hottest day of the year. Okay? And that occurs maybe 2 or 3 days every 10 years. So there's what it looks like in off-peak when it's running nice. You charge it up, it runs, charges up, runs, needed a bit more of a charge. And this here, you can see we weren't utilizing the Saturday and the Sunday. So the Sunday we could have put more tanks in, and during the Sunday we could have run the chiller and charged more tanks. Okay, and that would have brought this down. But it's a sort of cost-benefit ratio. All right, I'm just going to show you some stuff now where, for example, we talk about dashboards and all this type of stuff, how we've got tools which can integrate all these things. This is the last slide called the calendar graph. So what I've done is I've taken energy or the load profile from a facility, right? And I've found out what an average day is. So if you look at all of those, what does an average day look like? Well, it looks something like this. Sorry, it's gone off the screen. And then I take this energy and I add it up, and it gives me what's called the baseline. All right? So each day I can see whether we're running under or whether we're running over my average. So I can go along and tell you, you know what, there's something wrong with your facility. It's using too much energy to go and check. And I've actually done this for the municipality where, for example, rags got stuck in the impeller. And suddenly, instead of doing this, it did that. And they sent somebody out and they found out, yes, there was a rag stuck in the impeller. They pulled it out. Just pulling that rag out saved the funds for the entire project. Otherwise, they would have run like that for 2 or 3 weeks without knowing it. Okay? So these are the types of analytics that we do. This is separate, and now we can integrate this into other tools. Sorry. Here you can see there's all different dashboards and that you can do. There's industrial plant, all different types of dashboards that we can configure up, depending on what it is that you want. All right? And we can pull that all in. Let me just see here. So this is live. So depends on your internet connection and the whole other thing. So there, for example, we can look at the bottling line, in this case, data display. So this is real-time trending. We can look at that, we can encapsulate it all into one thing. If we want to go to our company website, we just do this. All right, we're given here a real-time example. So in this particular case, like the Schneider stuff, where you were looking at stuff in real-time trending, this is doing the same. So this is a factory up in Newcastle. All right, and I'm just showing here, that's the voltage, and here's the data being collected. You'll see it will change every couple of seconds. So we can bring real live data if you need it, or we can bring the historical data, or we can bring a mix. We can take tools and integrate them into the dashboard so that you've got one consolidated portal to see all these things. All right? So that's the sort of value add that Able Energy adds, is to say, look, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you've got stuff there, let's see if we can integrate it and utilize it. If you need something new, we'll do the new. But if you want to integrate something, we also know how to integrate. All right?
So that's live now, that's web-based.
That's web-based, it's live. Now you'll see here it's changing every. Unfortunately, the lights are bright, so you can't see it. Maybe if you just turn the light off outside here. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's live. So we're actually monitoring that from Newcastle in where's it? KwaZulu-Natal. And we can record this and do whatever it is that you want to do with it. Okay? That's not our business. We've just got the tool which can do the job. So, for example, here's a historical example. Sorry, this is just a bandwidth issue. So this is your demand, that's your power, that's your reactive power. We can take our energy. You can see down the bottom here, that maximum demand corresponds to that. This energy, in other words, the energy underneath here is totalized, 10213. This is the same for the reactive energy, and there's your average. So we've got all those stats. Basically we can compile this to, if you want it upside down, left, right, or whatever it is. So you can see here energy per day, per week. If you do that per month, you'll see there that there corresponds to that. So we've got different ways of finding these things out. We can also do time of use. So, for example, you want your tariff, you just download your tariff booklet. If you want to see your time of use periods, all right, come on. Sorry, the PC is slow. So what we've done here is we've identified when the maximum demand occurs. So if you go up top there, you'll see it occurs at that time, which is exactly the same as what we've got here. So, in other words, if we wanted to do the bill and check your bill, we've got all the elements of the bill right there. All right? And we can have a page which says, look at the billing, look over the previous months. Here you can look at any month and check the bills. So here we can go along and say, well, here we're looking at April, maybe we want to look at May. And you'll see it will update. Takes a bit of a while. All right, so there we are. So here you can see, for example, this is quite interesting. You see your maximum demand occurred over here, but your peak energy or power occurred over there. So they don't always occur at the same time. All right, and you can look at these trends and do billing. You can look at your production. You can do a whole lot of things. We take this data here and we pull it into that, and then we can do the analytics and analysis and all that sort of stuff for you. So you can have that online, or you can have it as a report, or whatever you want to do. Okay? You can see I've got all different things there. Average weekday, today versus yesterday, this week versus last week, so it's whatever. And you'll see at the top here, you can download or you can share. So if you want the data, you can pull it down onto your machine. We've got, and this is just a demonstration, but we've got a portal where each customer can have their own system. And we can take this and pull it into the other dashboard. So it's all integrated for you. Okay, so you can see your SCADA system, your operational system, your existing systems all under one thing. All right, I think that's enough of me.
I just need a clarity. I don't know whether I did not get it well. You were saying the you come to the company and you save the company about, or you take 50% out of the saving, and that is recurring, like it's not a once-off. But I'm paying 100 Rand a month to Eskom, and now you are taking the 50 and I'm still paying the 50 to Eskom.
No.
It's not so.
If I come to you and I save 100,000 Rand a month, let's say your bill was R1 million and I saved 100,000, you would only pay Eskom 900. Not $1 million. But of that 100, 50 goes to you and 50 comes to us. And what we tend to do is to say, okay, once we're making that saving for you, do you have any other facilities that you would like us to look at? So let's say, for example, you've got 10 factories, right? You now go along and say, right, we're making money now, we'll go and look at all your other factories and all that, because we're being paid. Okay? So you've got two options. The 100,000, you're going to be saving 100,000 each month. Eskom's not going to be getting that anymore. That's going into your pocket. All right? Once we've gone, that 100,000 goes into your pocket. So if our contract's 1 year, we're there for a year. After that year, we're not there. If you feel unhappy, you can buy us out. But the reality is before we came, you were losing 100,000 Rand a month. You didn't even know it. Because if you knew it, you would have done something about it. So we come up there and we say to you, you know what, we've signed the contract now, we can save you 100,000 Rand a month. What happens if we only saved 5,000 Rand a month? But we invested 80,000 Rands worth of service? You see, you've got to look at it from our point of view. We can lose out, yeah, you can lose out. So that's why I said right at the beginning, we provide the buyout option. Because people up front don't know what the opportunity is. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess I do.
Your question,
But another thing still there, I would like to know if, as you told us about the tools that you are using, you do not sell those tools, like you have to be part of.
the tools we've got are free tools. You can buy them yourself and do it. We just know what are good tools, how to integrate them. You buy them. We don't sell them to you. So Tableau, for example, that tool, you can go on the internet and buy it. You don't have to buy it from us. We just take that tool, give it to you, and say, right, here it is. You can use it. We're not into hardware and nuts and bolts. As I said, ours is at the value adding. All right? So we add value through the tools that we've selected. You buy the tools, you own them, not us. If you don't want the tools, if you want to use the online tools, then you can use it. So I've got my own Schneider system. If you want to use it online, you pay a monthly fee. There it is. Schneider have exactly the same deal. There's quite a few people who have exactly the same deal. Metering online, RMS. But the reality is they don't do what we do. They just give you certain things. Yes?
Sorry, great. I don't remember. That's obviously a large-scale example, but in that example, obviously without giving away another company's business model, what is the sort of size and cost of the main transformer? Because, I mean, in that case, like you mentioned payback period earlier, the transformer is not going to cost 18 baht, is it? I mean,
No. The bigger transformers get like, for example, a 500 MVA or 500 kVA transformer is about, if you go to a supply, it's about 280,000 or 250,000.
and when you get up to 60 kV and...
They look. I don't have a sort of Rand per kVA type figure.
Okay.
Okay. net to say that they get cheaper. Whatever you get at a 1 MVA level, it'll be much cheaper at a 60 kVA level. Look, that was an example. That would never be used here.
I see that most of your examples are related to going concerns, businesses that are actually operating. Do you look at consulting or coming in and where people are building building from scratch?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we want to get in, because I can tell you what, and with a lot of the people we've been to, they're either existing premises or it's a landlord or rented or something like this, and everything's in the wrong place. So we found that for bigger things like property developments and that, it's better to get in upfront, sit down with the people and say, you know what, if you want to do energy management, if you want to do things, please do it like this.
Just to add, an example of the Bridge City Mall, about
Yes.
the HVAC.
Yeah, the Bridge City Mall is a good example. Who did that? IDC.
Yeah,
IDC did it and they sold it off to somewhere. Anyway, we go there and they want to now save. Now, their biggest issue is air conditioning. But they've got these air conditioners inside a room like this, above the floor. It's like you can hardly get in it. And it's like, oh, hold on, they're not water chilled. So in actual fact, we can't run these units. So they went in and put cheap Chinese units in there. Now they stuck. Because what we want to do is we want to make like a central chiller, and we can't. So it's things like that. And aircon in a lot of facilities, aircon and heating and lighting is about the 3 biggest utility charges. Apart from gas, if you're in the Transvaal, there's gas and heating and stuff like that.
And your minimum length of your contracts, how long are you willing, if it's an existing business, what's your minimum length of contract?
Look, we like to work on a minimum of a year. Okay? Because it might take us 3-4 months. You can enter into a contract with a client and they're always busy. So it's like it's not like you can just go in there tomorrow and fix things up. When are you available? Now I've got a business meeting, now I've got audits, I've got this, I've got a client, and it's like, that's exactly why they land up in these problems. So we normally take quite a while. For example, if we put meters in, we might have to do 3-4 months or 6 months worth of metering to start doing that analysis, unless you've got that. So looking at the bills is one thing, actually seeing what the energy consumption is during the day is another thing.
And lastly, is it sustainable, or is it after you've gone, it may revert back to a scenario whereby the losses come back? Is it whatever you put through or the skills that you are utilizing, are they permanent for the company going forward?
Yeah, look, the tools that we use, okay, you can use them. So, in other words, like for example with Schneider or Siemens or ABB, that you buy their SCADA system and you get a gold maintenance thing and there's licensing and all this type of stuff. And within a year, all that's redundant. Okay? So there's no such thing as things last forever. So you have to make sure whatever you invest in, A, does the job, and B, that if you need to be self-sustaining, all right, then make sure that you've got the tools that people can use. Because with a lot of shopping centers and stuff like that, they're run by a managing agent, then the management agent outsources the toilet rolls to this guy, and they outsource the audio visual to this one, and they outsource the HVAC to this one, and the building management system to that one. And that's where they end up shooting themselves in the foot. Whereas you need to be able to say, all right, from a procurement point of view, we want to be able to have freedom to supply, pick up a lot of suppliers, okay, because it's good on your procurement record and stuff like that. But the problem is I've got 20 suppliers, I've got to pull them all back into one system. So that's where we come in. We say, right, let's take all this Greek and make English out of it.
I think, and thank you for the very logical process of saving energy. I think it speaks for itself, and I'm actually surprised that companies don't buy into these solutions. I really don't understand why. But just from a Medpac South Africa point of view, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but from the Department of Energy, DEA, there is now the NEMA, which is National Environmental Management Act, which is now regulatory, it's mandatory, it's statutory. And one of the sections to this act is Regulation 28, which talks about industry waste management plans. Now this is talking exactly to that. It is incumbent upon every company in South Africa to comply with industry waste management plans. So I see this thing dovetailing perfectly there. So that's the one thing. So the other cap that I'm wearing is I'm also managing director of a company called GI Business Solutions. And with GI Business Solutions, what we do is design and develop business management systems in the likes of ISO 14,000, 9,000, 22,000. And here, I haven't heard the concept of energy management systems, ISO 50,001. But that is something that we could very easily do, and it could be seen as a value add to you guys. So just a comment.
Yeah. For example, I didn't show it there, but they...
So, oopsie. So yeah, so the system you're talking about is this. So that's your entire energy management system. And this here, of course, is right at the end. So some company might want to put on their website, you know, how many tons of coal did we save this year or whatever it is. You basically do this. To find that out, you find out how much energy you've saved, you multiply it by the figures that Eskom give in their annual report of what their coal savings or environmental savings were, and it comes out over here. And the beauty of what I'm doing is you can show that in real time. Managers and that don't like to see things moving. They just like KPIs, you know, the management KPI. The problem with the management KPI is does that KPI actually reflect what is happening down at grassroots level? Many people have KPIs which mean nothing. To them it's a KPI, but in actual fact down here, someone's walking away with the toilet rolls or someone's walking away with something else. That KPI doesn't measure. So a KPI is really based on a person's experience of an organization or an industry. And you've got to be able to say, this KPI, okay, actually tells me something about what happens down here. Not a KPI happens over here. KPI, what is happening down there? And it depends. If you're a finance guy, you don't want to worry what's happening here. Maybe you're just worried about the finance. So it depends what level you're on.
Development. So if we're sitting, say we sit before development actually happens, what's your thought process in quantifying the savings? So how would you bill us?
Okay, look. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's an old facility or a new facility. All right? You're going to that shopping center or whatever it is. Okay? You're going to be doing leases. You're going to be doing utility agreements. So the point is how you're going to manage that. That's where we come in. So in other words, what type of metering should you use? Does your HVAC systems talk to your metering systems? Generally they don't. Okay? So that's where we would come in and sort of say, you might have electrical engineers. You might have electrical engineers who are doing the projects. Okay? And what we do is we go in and work with them and say, okay guys, when you do this, just make sure this is done. If you've got a panel, so for example, in your building, if your building's sitting like this, you know, have your water, have your electricity, have your communications, all in one place. Not on the one side of the building water, the other side of the building the communications, and on the middle of the building the electricity. Okay? Because when you start doing energy management, you want to know, okay, I've got a tenant, how much electricity and water do they use? Ah, but the meter's over there and I have to partition this off. So it comes down to how do you design your distribution board? Can your distribution board have the metering installed? And can the communications for that be installed at the same time? Not like we go to 320 West Street building and the new developers are there and they're refurbishing the place and nothing works.
I understand the offering that you help in making the building energy efficient, but from a monetary, so now how do you quantify the saving? Because nothing's happened, so how do I pay you, is what I'm saying. What is the value of your service at this point?
The value is very difficult to measure. Okay, for example, if I had a 100-watt light here and I replace it with 50, it's very easy to see what the value add is. When you design a building right from the outset, okay, it's a greenfields project. So it's very difficult to measure. What you have to do is rather go back to your property portfolio and say, okay, I've got an existing property. As a developer, I've developed these properties. And within that property portfolio, what is my benchmark? So what is my benchmark for water, utilities, electricity, whatever it is? If you're doing these things, you should have some form of benchmark. The fact that you're asking me is showing me that you don't have those benchmarks. All right? So you need those benchmarks, because then we will come in and say, okay, do this, do that, do that. And it should fall in underneath that benchmark. If it doesn't, then I'm talking nonsense. All right, so you will find now all these big houses, they're building nice properties, they want them all green, they want this, so that they can raise rentals to attract clients. So a client can come along now and say, oh, well, I've moved into this new facility, it's all green, and they get all their greeny points and all this type of stuff. Okay? But the point is benchmarked against what? So you've got your green building council and all that type of stuff you do. So the only way you can do it is we would come in to your organization and say, all right, let's have a look at your existing property portfolio or development. What do they do? You see, there's some developers who are CapEx focused. They come in, they deliver a turnkey project, and off they go. The operations, which are there for the next 50 years, left with whoever picks it up. Whether this is designed like that is irrelevant. My job was just to install the CapEx, get it done, and I walk away. So sometimes the developers don't have an interest in what happens downstream. And that's where we come in, is to say, well, why not? If you take an interest in it and you can add value and you can make savings by doing these things, take an interest. There's some developers who end up running it as well, so they have a participation. There's some people who don't. So there's all these difficult things. It depends what space you're playing in. But essentially, you've got a benchmark.
Can I just take the question forward and say I have a client that wants to put up, hypothetically, a petrol station, right? So when you say look at the benchmarks, I should look at what the actuals of other fuel stations were funding to say what the spend is versus what, because the thing is, I want you to come in and assist that client to be able to structure everything so that he has, he doesn't spend much electricity. So how then does, what I'm trying to be able to get at, and I think what the lady was trying to do as well, is to find out how do we make sure we know that how much do you get paid, because we need to be able to structure that also in the projections.
Oh, okay. Well, look, basically, if it's just on a consulting basis, it's just on a consulting basis, on an hourly rate.
Okay.
Or if it's over a certain project period, we just make a fixed fee. Yeah. So that's just would be normal negotiation. Trade and industry. There's a company in Queensborough who set up, they do frozen fruit. So they bring frozen fruit in and all this sorts. And they built a brand new facility. It's a greenfield. They got funded through the 12I initiative. So if you're doing, and for example, if you're building a shopping center, all right, and it's going to be energy efficient, and it's a new project, you can apply to the DTI, to the 12I program, under their Greenfields project. So there's many of these facilities all over Durban that take frozen fruit. So you put your fruit in there, you store it for a couple of days, and you put it on the ship. And these guys came along and said, well, we're using all the new technology. So now I have to measure and verify that. So what we did is we went to an expert in Cape Town who had done a study on the entire frozen food market. And he came out with a figure of like 6-point-something kilowatt hours per ton. So that was the benchmark. These guys are sitting at 2.6 per ton. So what we're saying is okay, your facility relative to the benchmark is sitting at 2.6 relative to 6.7. And so you have to work on that expertise, all right, to be able to sort of say, well, if we're going to do this, do we have a benchmark? So there's an example of a new facility that was built, was funded by government, and it had a requirement to make a 15% reduction. In their case, they made a 50% reduction. So they're well below their industry standard. And they're using about 500,000 a month. So it's basically saying if they were using the older technology, they would be sitting at least 1 million, 1.2 million a month. Gateway, not Gateway, Pavilion. Checkers had their HVAC, and this one had their HVAC, and you know, each big tenant likes to do their own thing. So what they did there is they eventually went to one big system, right, where everybody derives their cold water chiller from one central system. Now the point is why go 15 years down the line and do that? They've lost 15 years of savings because no one had the foresight at the beginning to see that energy would go up, and you know, and we all do our own thing. So it's things like that. If you deal with property, you've got anchor tenants who are difficult. They want this, they want this upside down, left, right. But the point is one needs to be able to talk some sense into them to save money.